Welcome to the first ever edition of Jess's Tiers, a totally original idea that I thought of all by myself using the website Tier Maker, which no one has ever used before to rank anything. And today I'm going to rank my tiers of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power characters from Season 2 of the hit Amazon Prime show. Before we get started, this will be spoiler heavy. I will not only be spoiling the show, but I'm going to spoil the books too. So if you don't want any spoilers, or if you don't want to know what might happen in season 3 or 4 or 5 based on the text, you probably don't want to watch this. Also, I know a lot of people don't like the show and it's very polarizing, and some of the characters are very polarizing, but I'm not going to lie, I'm a big fan of season 2 and I enjoyed it. So we're going to have fun here. If you don't like the show, that's totally fine. There's parts of it I didn't like either, but I think overall, I really enjoyed it. And if you like Lord of the Rings, I think you would probably like it too. So that is my final note before I get started. I've read all the Lord of the Rings books. The Hobbit is one of my favorite books of all time. I've read the additional texts from Tolkien, but I am by no means a lore master. So if I get anything wrong or pronounce anything wrong, just bear with me, okay? I'm doing my best here. But let's start with the top tier, the number 1 tier. This is the Patrick Mahomes tier, okay? This is the mithril tier. This is the highest tier that you can be ranked. And this should be no surprise to anyone who watched the show. There are 2 people in this tier. Well, 2 characters, I should say. This is not going to shock anyone. The first one, it's our buddy. It's our buddy Halbrand. And again, spoilers, they're coming. Turn this off if you don't want spoilers. Our buddy Halbrand, who becomes Anatar in season 2, he is the Dark Lord Sauron. And he was, oh my God, just absolutely the best character in this show, portrayed by Charlie Vickers, who should win every single award. Give him 10 Emmys for his portrayal of Sauron. I know that's not how the Emmys work, but it's fine. This was Mahomes level, okay? This was like a generational performance. He was so good. He was so charming. He was so evil. He was so manipulative, okay? Because this whole season we're building up, how does he get Celebrimbor to make these rings, to create these treacherous rings? And it turns out he treated him like he was a abusive ex, okay? Like, he's just manipulating him, he's love bombing him, and then when something bad happens to Celebrimbor, he's like, why did you do that to yourself? This is all your fault. Which brings me to the number 2 character in the Mahomes tier, Celebrimbor. Obviously, Charles Edwards, just, again, spectacular performance. We have to stan these 2 on screen. They were so good. They made the show. I think people that, don't, maybe you don't like the Harfoots, maybe you don't like the Stranger, maybe you don't like all these other Numenor. Well, I think most people like Numenor though. These 2 made this season of the show worth watching because every scene that they were on screen together was just, they absolutely knocked it out of the park. It was so good. So they're in my Mahomes tier. Celebrimbor, wow, great acting, great wardrobe, great chemistry with Charlie Vickers, Anatar. Just a absolutely devastating finale for him. I'm sad we're not going to see him back unless he's back in some sort of like Galadriel vision or something, or maybe a flashback, but he was great. And I mean, just again, they knocked it out of the park. He played the role really well. The ending line where he is telling Anatar to his face that he doesn't own these rings. These rings own him. It was really good stuff. So that's our Mahomes tier. Celebrimbor, Halbrand / Anatar / the Dark Lord Sauron. Next, we're going to move to our gold tier. This is a tier that is like A+. You're not like Mahomes level, but you're really good. Like, you're above average. You're solid. Taylor, you can think of a quarterback comparison to give us here, but this is the gold level. Yeah, this is Josh Allen level. We'll say Josh Allen. There we go. I'm going to start with maybe a controversial Adar. He is a made-up character in this world. He's one of the oldest elves, one of the first elves to be corrupted by Morgoth. I thought he added a really nice sort of alternative dimension to what we typically see as the war between good and evil, and the elves and the men versus Sauron. Like, he's another bad guy that also doesn't like Sauron, and so it added a little bit of a twist, which I think the showrunners were not sure if they wanted to keep this character around, if they wanted to kill him off in the first season. They kept him around, and I thought they did a really good job because he added a nice element. I think the acting was great. They recast him in season 2, obviously. I thought both actors were great. So he's in my Josh Allen / gold tier, along with Arondir. Again, maybe that's controversial, but he's one of my favorite elves. He's probably a top 3 elf in the show. He's always saving the day. There was a moment where I thought he died at one point, and I was super bummed, which is, I think, also something that indicates that you're in a top tier. If I'm really sad about your on-screen death, then you were doing something great. Turns out he's not dead. He was back in the last scene. So that's great to see. And I hope we get more Sylvan Elves, because I think there's a lot that we'll see happen with them and in Middle Earth. And so I really like him a lot in the first season. Definitely still liked him in the second season. So in the gold tier, this should not surprise anyone either. Elrond, okay? Taylor's nodding his head because he knows. Elrond was great in this season. I didn't really like Elrond that much in season 1. I'm not going to lie. And I know that's crazy, but I just picture Hugo Weaving. I pictured like this older Elrond character. But Rob Aramayo, he did a really great job with Elrond. His prosthetic ears are quite large, and they were distracting at times. But once you got used to that, I mean, he had a really great performance as well as Elrond. And we know Elrond's going to be a main character moving forward, right? We saw the final scene of season 2. They're going to create the last homely house, Rivendell, Imladris. And Elrond, he's going to be the main star until we know where this show's going to end, right? We know that in season 5, they're going to build towards the last alliance of elves and men, and Elrond is going to be in the gaping, flaming maw chasm of Mount Doom, just surrounded by flames while Isildur holds the One Ring. And we know how tragically that scene will end when Elrond, just like he did in season 1, he's begging, and season 2, begging his friend, please don't use the ring. Please don't use the ring. So a lot of foreshadowing in this season with that final scene that I'm sure the show is building towards. I mean, I think it would be crazy if that wasn't where this all ends up. And so this season was great for Elrond. You saw a lot of kind of character growth and progression with him. I really like that they added the scene where he's like, please don't set the scrolls on fire in Eregion. He's like, please, there's so much history and lore. You can't do that. And the orcs were like, dude, we don't care. We're just going to set that shit on fire. We do not care. Anyways, moving on. Galadriel, gold tier. I really like Galadriel. I like getting to know her backstory and what made her, like what tempted her into, you know, like Sauron wants her to be his queen, right? And like we got to see in season 1 how she fell for him and how she was deceived by him. And so there's going to be, I think, a lot of character growth with her because she starts out like, I think a lot of people think that the elves are like these perfect creatures and they don't do anything wrong and like they can't, you know, they can't make mistakes, they can't be deceived. But we know, obviously, if you've read the books, that is just not true. The elves all have, like, they're all like little fuckboys to some extent. Like, they all have these really strange behaviors and do things and are easily corrupted and greedy, and they can be bad too. And so we saw how she was deceived and then sort of like was so upset by it and maybe wasn't acting in her best judgment. And so now we're going to see her, I think, come back from that and try to like redeem herself, because she inevitably was the reason that Sauron came to Eregion to create the rings with Celebrimbor. And she's got good instincts and she's got bad instincts. And I think she's a complicated character and a great warrior, a great fighter. I love the fight scene at the end with her. And Halbrand turns into Halbrand and you're like, oh my God, is she gonna fall for him? No, she's not, because she has learned she is not going to touch the darkness. She's going to go towards the light. Speaking of darkness, this may be controversial that I'm putting this character in the gold tier, but Kemen. Kemen, oh my God. What a little asshole. This guy sucks, okay? He is like King Joffrey levels POS. Hate him. When he got his shoulder, they took like stepped on, like curb stomped his shoulder blade. I was like, good. Or his collarbone, whatever that was. They broke it, and I was like, honestly, good. He's an asshole. And that death scene where he stabs Valendil, terrible, awful guy. But the reason he's in the gold tier, okay, is because he's a character that they don't give him a lot of screen time. He's not in a lot of episodes, but they made him such a asshole so quickly. And it's good to have a character that you just see on screen and you immediately hate. And I think feeling something, even if it's a negative vibe or a bad feeling about a character, that's good show writing, okay? Like, we all know when he comes on screen, we're gonna be like, God damn it, that little asshole's back. And TBD, what ends up happening with him, because we see him at the end of the season he goes to Middle Earth. And is he going to become one of the Nazgul? There's a lot of speculation about that. Is he going to be the king of the dead, perhaps? I don't know. I don't know what his future holds, but he is a little shit, and you love to hate him, and that's why he's in the gold tier, because he's an all-time great villain, despite having very few scenes in the show so far. So shout out to Kemen. He is absolutely the worst. Last character in the gold tier, the Balrog. The Balrog. Oh my god, what a finale with the Balrog. Oh, love that guy. He is crazy. Okay, this Balrog is crazy. Just outstanding depiction of the Balrog. He looked evil. They looked like they were sort of like mirroring some of the Balrog scenes from Fellowship, and it worked. Like, it worked. Like, his little whip. I know there's that famous Tolkien drawing of the Balrog. It looks exactly the same. I just think that, like, if you're gonna emulate the depiction of something from a beloved Peter Jackson film, make it look good. And it did look good. And that scene with Durin, King Durin, old Durin, sort of charging at the Balrog, that was epic. I mean, just so well done in the finale of this show. So that's my gold tier, okay? We got Kemen, Galadriel, Balrog, Elrond, Arondir, and Adar. I think I said Galadriel, but Galadriel's in there too. Next tier. This is like the solid tier of good work, good effort. You guys crushed it, but like you're not giving me above and beyond, but like I'm not mad about you at all. Like, you did a good job. You're solid. And Elendil. Actually, I probably should have put Elendil at gold. Elendil, I love Elendil, okay? Great casting, great character. He's got that super deep voice, and guess what? Finally got Narsil in this season. He finally got his sword. We know he's going to be a main character moving forward. He didn't really do a lot in this season, which I think is why I put him in this category, because I think he had a bigger arc in season 1. But we know he's going to be a main character moving forward. We know he is a huge part of this last alliance that goes to Middle Earth and kills Sauron. And we know how he dies. And I'm getting choked up about it just thinking about it. But love Elendil. Solid work by Elendil. Can't wait to see more Elendil in the future. Also in this tier, Disa and Durin. I put them together because they share pretty much all their scenes together. They're great. Great comic relief. Great. They're both funny. They're both cute. They're both probably doomed. But I think they're a great addition to the show. I really like them. And I'm not going to lie. Like, in The Lord of the Rings, the dwarves weren't my main focus. In The Hobbit, I love the dwarves, okay? Love the dwarves in The Hobbit. Lord of the Rings, not my main focus. This show, I think that they made these dwarves so likable that you're excited to see them on screen, which I think is a good thing, because whatever's going on in Khazad-dûm with the Balrog, super important to the plot, and you want to look forward to those scenes, and I do, because Durin and Disa are in them. Also, solid work, good effort. My girl Winterbloom, she's only in one episode, sort of. She only speaks in one episode, but man, I'm already torn up about what's going to happen to the Entwives. So I had to put her in this category because, if you're sad about them dying already, it means they're doing something good. And I'm always sad about the Ents because they are such tragic characters. But they do get their moment in Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. And I hope she makes it. I hope they escape. I hope they don't all get burned down. I think they're probably all going to get burned down. But yeah, shout out to Winterbloom and Snaggleroot, my Ent friends. Another character in the solid work, good effort category, Gil-galad. We know he also is going to have some big moments coming up later on in the show. He was solid in this season. He doesn't do a ton. He doesn't do nothing. He's solid. He plays the role really well. He's the High King of Noldor. He's the High King of the Elves. He's an important character, but he's not really the main character of our story. So solid work from Gil-galad. Lastly, the evil sea monster. I don't know if this thing has a name, okay? I probably should have looked that up, but this thing is weird and it's creepy. It like eats Queen Muriel and then like spits her up or something. We see him in the first season too. Solid work. It's a scary sea monster. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of the monster itself, but as a character, good job. Solid work by the sea monster. My next tier. This is right under like good job, solid effort. This is like the like they're cute. This is that tier, like the cutie pie tier, I guess we could call it. And obviously I'm putting Poppy and Nori in the cutie pie tier because they are adorable. They're our friends from season 1. They're back. I know that the Harfoots are sort of controversial. A lot of people don't like them. A lot of people think that they take away from the main storylines with the Numenorians and with the elves. And I understand that because I'm not going to lie. In this season, I didn't really enjoy Poppy and Nori and their story as much as I did in the first season. The first season, I loved seeing the migrations. I loved Sadak. I loved just seeing like their little world and how Hobbit-like they were, but what some of the differences were, and getting to know the one that looked like Stugotz. He was great. But in this season, I thought that their storyline probably could have been condensed and been a little bit shorter. But I really like Poppy and Nori. I think they're adorable. Poppy, she's our Samwise. She's our Samwise Gamgee. I love the Wandering song. And I think we know what's going to happen next with the Harfoots. I think we know that Taylor's nodding his head because he knows.
I'm trying to be a supportive teammate back here, and somebody just said, do you know what she's talking about? I said, she might as well be speaking Mandarin right now.
Well, I mean, that is the language of Tolkien, am I right? There's a lot of names, there's a lot of places, there's a lot of stories. And I'm trying to get to all of them a little bit in here, so shout out to Taylor, because later on when he makes the tier list, it's gonna be a doozy. But I love Poppy and Nori. They're just cute characters. I'm glad that they're included because we know the hobbits ultimately become the most important characters in Middle-earth in the fight against Sauron. So obviously you want to know what they're up to in the Second Age. And they're cute. I really like them. So they're in the cutie pie tier, along with Beric. Beric he might be the best character in the whole show, but he's a cutie pie first and foremost, and he saves Isildur. What a good horse. I mean, shout out to Beric. He's excellent. Just love Beric. Isildur, also a cutie pie. I mean, we know Isildur's story. We know how it ends, right? I mentioned it earlier with Elrond, and we know that it's going to be a tragic end. But I think you're going to see throughout this show why that is. What makes him such a tragic character. And learning the backstory with his mom, really, really sad. Like, knowing the guilt and the weight he carries with him, and then knowing that, like, all of his friends are dead. He doesn't even know all of his friends are dead yet, but they are. His dad is going to die. He's going to see all of these people around him. His kids are going to die at some point. It's going to be a lot of growth for Isildur to get to the point where he's like this warrior character, but we're going to ultimately, I think, I've heard the showrunners talk about this, like when he does make the decision to not destroy the ring, I think they want the audience to sort of empathize with that and not be like, what a dumbass. Because when you watch it in the Fellowship of the Rings, right? Like, everyone's seen Fellowship of the Ring. Taylor, you've seen Fellowship of the Ring. He said yes. He nodded his head no, but he said yes. When you see him in the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring turn to Elrond and he's like, no, when he puts the ring on and disappears, you're like, oh, come on. Like, just throw it in the fire. God damn it. But obviously, like, then we wouldn't have a story. So I think this show is going to make you empathize with Isildur a little bit and be like, okay, I get what's going on there. It's going to be tragic, but he's a cutie pie. Season 2, cutie pie, love story, cutie pie. Also in the cutie pie category, Theo. A lot of people didn't like him in season 1. I understand why. He was a problem child. He was just difficult. And in this season, I think he gets a little bit of redemption. He's trying to do his best, all right? His mom died off screen. Like, that sucks. Like, I know the actress didn't want to come back, and they had to do it that way, but it's tough. And he seems like a kid carrying a lot of guilt for, the whole thing with the key that looked like a sword that then they turned and it, like, opened the chasm of Mount Doom and created the volcanic eruption that then covered the Southlands in soot and smoke and killed a ton of people. So, yeah, I feel bad for Theo, but I think he is on the road to redemption. He's another character like Kemen where I'm like, I could see him becoming someone that we know from the books. I don't know who. Like, King of the Dead is the first thing that comes to mind. Just knowing the King of the Dead's backstory, who, of course, everyone remembers from The Return of the King. But I like Theo, cutie pie category. And lastly, in the cutie pie category, Glug. Glug, what a good orc. I mean, I know this is controversial too, but he's kind of cute. Shout out to Glug. All right, next category, Tom Bombadil. The Tom Bombadil category, which sort of separates like the higher tiers from the lower tiers. And this kind of gets its own tier because the only person in the Tom Bombadil tier is Tom Bombadil, because I don't know how else you classify Tom Bombadil other than by saying he's Tom Bombadil. A lot of people were not thrilled that they included Tom Bombadil. I should also add, a lot of people don't like Tom Bombadil from the Fellowship of the Ring, and they don't like. They were like really happy that Peter Jackson kept him out of Fellowship of the Ring, which I find really bizarre because I loved Tom Bombadil when I read Fellowship. He's one of my favorite characters. He's got so much lore, and I think that they took a stab at trying to sort of explain, not like who he is, because they don't really explain that, but sort of explain his connection to Middle Earth in the Third Age by showing this like meeting between him and the Stranger, who we now obviously at the end of the season we find out that he is indeed Gandalf. More on that later. But they took a stab at it, and I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I was fine with it. I thought the lamb was really cute in his house. And his jacket's bright blue and his boots are yellow. Tom Bombadil's fine. He's in the Tom Bombadil tier. One of my favorite characters from the book. I think he'll probably end up being in the rest of this show if I had to guess. But I don't know exactly. And I think I'm kind of just reserving judgment to see how his story unfolds. But I like Tom Bombadil. I know people also were bugged that he sort of repeated back some of Gandalf's lines from the books to Gandalf in this, and that rubbed people the wrong way. I get that. More on that later when we talk about Gandalf, which is actually our next character in the meh tier. Starting to get into the things that, I guess this is like the Justin Fields tier maybe, or like the Darnold tier. I'm not sure. And can you call Darnold meh this season? That's a question for Tony's tiers, which by the way I've never seen because this was my idea that I came up with on my own.
Andy Dalton maybe?
Maybe Andy Dalton. No.
Just not a needle mover.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. We'll say Andy Dalton. No disrespect to Justin Fields. Go Steelers. Okay. The Stranger. The Stranger who we now know. He's a grand elf. Ah, he's Gandalf. I get it. Okay. Here's the thing. I think that they just spent too much time on this reveal. And when they started writing the script for season 1, if I'm remembering correctly from an interview that I listened to, they didn't know yet which wizard they wanted this to be. And so from the start, I think this sort of like portrayal sort of rubbed me the wrong way, because I'm like, if this is Gandalf, like they made him so hapless. He was so like, he's like a little baby deer and just was so hapless and clueless. And I understand, like, you're at Istari, you're sent down and you're naked and you're in like a pile of like ashes and you don't know what anything is, and but you speak Quenya, sorry. You speak Quenya, but like you don't understand English. I don't know. It just like I was confused about how just confused he was as a character. And then in season 2, there's this long arc of like he's, finding his staff and he's trying to find his name, and he doesn't know how to control his powers and wield his magic and all of that. And Bombadil kind of gives him some guidance and some advice. And like, I'm not like mad at any of it. It just like feels like it took too long and it took away from some of the other things that I wanted to see. They could have made the Gandalf reveal at the end of season 1 and then moved it forward in season 2 onto something else. I like that they're exploring different parts of Middle Earth that we haven't seen before. I think he's a good actor. Like it's not like the actor doing a bad job. It's just sort of like the character itself. I'm just confused. Like, how much does he know? How much does he not know? I know the timeline is like totally out of whack in this entire show. I probably should have mentioned that off the bat. Like, this condensed timeline is weird. Gandalf shouldn't even really be here. I do like that they're showing you, because we know in the Third Age, Gandalf loves the hobbits, right? And he has this like sort of connection to the hobbits. And I like that you're seeing like, oh, maybe this is because like 1,000 years ago, he led the hobbits to the Shire and he had this hobbit friend Nori who saved his life. So I do like that you're getting some like backstory there, although it's sort of, it's not lore, it's not canon, but I don't hate it, I don't love it. It's just meh. If you really, really feel strongly that you love Gandalf, I'm willing to hear arguments for it. Okay, I mean, obviously I love Gandalf, like Sir Ian McKellen Gandalf and like book Gandalf. It's just Rings of Power Gandalf I'm not quite there with yet. But if you love Rings of Power Gandalf. Let me know why. Maybe I might change my mind. I just think I was a little confused with what he was up to in this season. That's all. Muriel's in the meh category. They just didn't really give her a lot of scenes in this season. I think the actress is great. She just didn't really have a huge role. They didn't really flesh out her character too well. She's just sort of like, oh yeah, that's my Palantir, and it's like, wait, why would you just admit that? They're gonna kill you. Why would you do that? But then the sea monster spits her up, which was kind of cool. But yeah, she's just sort of mad this season. I liked her in season 1 more. She had more stuff going on. Obviously, I think season 3 we're gonna go heavy in the fall of Numenor. So she'll probably be more involved there, as will Farazan, who is also in the meh tier. Farazan, I love his costume. I love his hair. Good actor. Just again, like, sort of confused what he's got cooking up and what's going on with him. I didn't really fully understand how the eagle arriving declared him the king. If someone could explain that to me, because like all of a sudden, I forget the guy, other lord in Numenor, what his name was, but he starts chanting his name, and then they're like, oh yeah, that means he's the king. And I'm like, what? Is that easy? Like, if I were Muriel, I would have been like, Muriel, no? Like, anyone else? See if anyone joins. But yeah, I mean, we know he's going to be a huge character moving forward because, you know, we all know what happens in Numenor, okay? So, next season, I think he'll probably move up a category. King Durin, he's in the meh. Just like, again, a little one note this season. He was just very consumed with his greed, but the Balrog season, or the Balrog scene was great. He was just fine. Like, we just didn't spend a lot of time with him. Not a knock on him at all. Just fine. A great beard, I will say. Estrid also meh. She's fine. Like, maybe something amazing will happen with her character in season 3. I don't know. But this like love triangle thing was not like my favorite part of the season. It was just fine. She was fine. When she branded herself on the neck, that was scary. That looked painful. Lastly, in the meh category, Forodwaith. That's so hard to say. Forodwaith, Sauron. He was only in like one scene at the beginning of the episode. Charlie, like, when you see them side by side, the two Saurons, you're like, wow, Charlie Vickers, like, something about him is right. The first Sauron, I forget the actor's name. I forget his name. He's very sinister looking. And if I were Galadriel, I would have been like, Sauron, that's Sauron, like, right off the bat, because he looked super evil. Whereas Charlie Vickers is like evil behind a smile, and you're like, oh, I feel easily manipulated by you. Would you like to be my friend? Maybe you're a long descended king of the Southlands. He's not. He's the Dark Lord. That was it for the meh category. Now we have the last category. This is the Mordor category. There's only 3 characters. 3 characters plus extras. The Dark Wizard and his servants. I don't know who this guy is supposed to be. I hope he's not Saruman, because that just wouldn't really make any sense. Like, Saruman's supposed to be like pretty good until the Third Age. Until we sort of see him and his fall, which is much, much later in the timeline. Again, this timeline makes it so that like it could be anyone. Like this could be him. I hope it's not. I just don't know why he's there. Like, why are you being so mean to the Stores and the Harfoots? Like, just chill. Like, it's fine. And like all his servants and stuff, like, I really liked the song that they play when these scenes were on. The music and the score was great, which, by the way, I should have put Bear McCreary in the Mahomes category because he was sneaky MVP of this whole show. But he's a composer of Rings of Power. But the Dark Wizard and his servants, like, again, same thing with the Stranger. That storyline, just like, we could have just gotten to the end place a lot quicker, and I don't know who they're supposed to be, so I'm not sure why I'm invested in them yet. But like, maybe I missed something. I don't know. Maybe they'll be better in season 3 if they're still sticking around. Okay, Iarian. I think I said her name right. She's Elendil's daughter. Man, she's the worst. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you? And like, Elendil's your oldest friend, and like your buddy Kemen just literally stabbed him in the back, and you're just. You picked the wrong side. I'm sorry. Like, she's for sure gonna die. My note for her character was, what do you even do here? because literally, like, what do you even do? Where did you come from? She just brings out the Palantir and she's like, look, an elf stone. And everyone's like, oh my God. She's just annoying. I mean, she moves the plot, I suppose, but she's a bad person. The last one in the Mordor tier, I put Hagen. This is Estrid betrothed. Again, this love triangle. It's just maybe he'll end up like Isildur will end up with Estrid, and then Hagen will like try to kill one of them, and then he'll end up hating Isildur and he'll take one of the rings. I don't really know. I mean, he also could just be a nobody. Oh, I forgot to add nobody, the store, to this list. Throw him in there somewhere, Taylor. But yeah, I mean, Hagen was whatever. Like all the Mordor category, I'm like, I don't know. You guys are fine. Whatever. Just forgot that you were in the show. But whatever. I think that was the end of my list. I got to shout out my guy, Charlie Vickers and Charles Edwards, for just, oh my God. I could talk about their performances in the show for an hour. Taylor, you would agree they were Mahomes level, right?
Yeah, one of the things we were talking about back here, what's the overlap between college football fans and Lord of the Rings? Because I feel like you have a very like niche demographic in this Venn diagram. That's a good question. If you're a college football fan and a Lord of the Rings Rings of Power fan, A, you probably already follow me on Twitter. But B, drop us a note in the comments. Maybe we'll come back with another edition of Jess's Tiers and I'll rank characters from the books. Who knows? Maybe I'll just go back and do season 1. If you like this content, like, subscribe, follow, send me a tweet. If you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your opinions. I'm easily persuaded, all right? Like, if you ever listen to Gen CFB, if someone says they're picking one team, I'm like, you're right, I'm picking that team too. I have no spine. Okay. Charlie Vickers, Charles Edwards, my guy Anatar, and my other guy Celebrimbor. You guys knocked it out of the park. Congratulations on your Emmys. I can't wait for season 3. It's probably going to come out in like 2 years, but I hope you enjoyed the first ever and perhaps last ever edition of Jess's Tiers, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power Season 2 edition.